Today we're going to talk about Helaman chapter 3. There's a lot that happens in this chapter, and it spans 10 years from the 43rd year of the reign of the judges all the way through to the 53rd year of the reign of judges by the time we get to the end of the chapter. So between the 43rd and about the 45th year of the reign of judges, there wasn't a whole lot of contention. There were some minor contentions here and there, but for the most part it was warm. It wasn't heated to the degree that they had wars, as we just read in all the previous chapters with Zarahemna and Amalickiah and Ammoron and all these dissenters. But in the 46th year of the reign of judges, there began to be more contentions and disputations and dissensions, and I guess people just didn't really want to hang around Zarahemla anymore. And so a lot of these people started traveling northward to the land north, to where all the many bodies of water and rivers were. And this is where the Jaredites had caused so much destruction that it rendered the land desolate. And by desolate, they refer to the fact that there were no timbers, so they couldn't build their houses and temples and whatnot. And so they had to do a lot of shipping from the land south to the land north, ship a lot of timber so that the people up north could build their houses. And in the meantime, they built their homes out of cement. And those who didn't, they lived in tents. But we read in this chapter that many cities began to spring up, and they were all made of wood by this shipping of timber. And so I believe that a lot of these people they had to have been Mulekites. You know, this is a Nephite record. The Book of Mormon is a Nephite record, but we almost never hear a thing about the Mulekites, the descendants of Mulekites, other than once in a while we read that hey, the Mulekites are here with us, but other than that, there just isn't a mention of descendants of Mulek. And I think a lot of these dissensions, I personally believe that they were related to the people of Mulek. I mean, Zarahemla was their city to begin with. Zarahemla, who founded the city, may well have been a Mulekite, or among those people that, he was among those people that came with Mulek at the start of the record when they settled Zarahemla, the city Zarahemla. And so when King Mosiah the First leaves the city of Nephi and finds these people in Zarahemla, he takes over. I mean, they made him king because he had a record. The language was still pure; it had not been corrupted the way it had been with the Mulekites. And so now you have the Nephites who are large and in charge, and the Mulekites from that point forward took a backseat to the Nephites and to the Nephite culture and to the feuding that went between the Nephites and the Lamanites and so on and so forth. So it may well be that a lot of these dissensions and dissenters and people who fled migrated to the land northward were probably Mulekites. At least I think a lot of them were. Anyway, so that's a big tangent. I want to read to you verse 12 in chapter 3 of Helaman. And it came to pass that there were many of the people of Ammon, who were Lamanites by birth, did go forth into this land. I'll just read 13 also. And now there are many records kept of the proceedings of this people by many of this people, which are particular and very large concerning them. So I don't know if Ammon is still alive. Maybe he's a very old man now, and if he is, he's still the high priest. If Ammon had passed away by this point, maybe his son became the next high priest. That's pretty typical of this culture. And so these people, all the anti-Nephi Lehis, or the Ammonites as they were also called, they all went to the land northward. They probably wanted to get away from all the politics of the Nephites and the Lamanites and the Mulekites and have a place where they could peacefully worship the Lord. Remember that when they were dwelling in the land Melech, in the heart of Zarahemla, they were considered to be a very zealous people who were very devoted to the Lord, even more so than the Nephites were. So, and this is the last we hear about them ever again. And maybe one day, when we have more records brought to us in the future, maybe we'll read more about these people, along with the sealed portion of the plates. And we read about that in Ether chapter 4. We'll learn more about that later. So, anyway, in the 48th year of the reign of Judges, then Helaman's two sons are mentioned. The elder son is Nephi, and the younger son is named Lehi. And Helaman named them to keep them in remembrance of their first fathers, that when they remembered their names, they would remember the names of their first father Lehi and Lehi's son Nephi, and that they would always be mindful of their works, and that they would also likewise be dedicated to the Lord as much as their first fathers were, Lehi and Nephi, back in the beginning of the record. So now in verse 23 we read, let's see here. And it came to pass in the 49th year of the reign of the judges, there was continual peace established in the land, all save it were the secret combinations which Gadianton the robber had established in the more settled parts of the land, which at that time were not known unto those who were at the head of government. Therefore they were not destroyed out of the land. So Helaman is still the chief judge, and they had peace now. Zarahemla had attained a type of equilibrium. Okay, people were happily departing, settling new lands up northward. Others settling down in Zarahemla, rebuilding probably many places that had been destroyed. And so there begins to be a great prosperity in the church, and so much so that the priests and the high priest of the church were very surprised. And we read that tens of thousands of people had become humble and joined the church. And so there was a great period of prosperity in these few years. So now we go to verse 30, and I will read concerning the people who are making their way along the straight and narrow path to land their souls, yea, their immortal souls at the right hand of God in the kingdom of heaven, to sit down with Abraham and Isaac and with Jacob and with all our holy fathers, to go no more out. And I expounded this phrase, to go no more out, in my previous video, so I encourage you to watch that if you haven't. I explain what it means to sit down with our fathers, to go no more out. So Helaman 3, chapter 3 ends with Helaman passing away and his son Nephi taking over the judgment seat, and his son Nephi then becomes the 7th chief judge in the land of Zarahemla. To be continued.